Hi, I'm Jess,
And I'm Helen.
and welcome to another episode of Dose of Pharma. Today, we are joined by Pauline, who works at CSL as a pharmacovigilance specialist, and we'll be discussing networking tips and early career do's and don'ts. To begin, Pauline, could you tell us a bit about your career journey so far?
I have a science background. I'm actually from Perth originally, and I moved over here to Melbourne for my career when I started at CSL. But I graduated from the University of Western Australia with a Bachelor of Science. I majored in biochemistry, which although I majored in it, is not my favourite subject, actually, to be honest, but still really, really interesting. I also minored in pathology, so I have a really strong science background. And then after I finished up my bachelor's, I was a little bit lost. I was sort of like, what do I do from here with my science degree? I didn't have any industry experience at the time. What I'd been doing was working in labs over the summer. So I was just sort of like, I'm not competitive enough to, apply for certain jobs in industry because, they're usually looking for experience and I didn't have any. So then I was like, okay, why not do my honours, sort of continue that trajectory into research and see if I liked it or not. And so that's what I did. So I did a year of honours. I looked into tumour immunology in a mice model. And it was really, really interesting and I really loved it. Highly rewarding to do your honours year, honestly. I really recommend it. And it really gave me a glimpse of what, further research was going to be like. And unfortunately, it wasn't quite what I wanted. Although I really enjoyed my honours year, I was like, I don't think I could do a PhD and, get progressively into a research career. So at the end of just before my honours ended, I applied for the CSL graduate program and I was very lucky to be able to get in. And it sort of changed everything as, I obviously then moved away from home to Melbourne and started my CSL graduate program. So that's where my career began. Mind you, I didn't know anything about pharmaceuticals at all. So there might have been maybe a couple handful of pharmaceutical companies in Perth, but majority of them are over here in the east side, obviously. Didn't know what pharmaceuticals was. Didn't actually know what quality was either, and that was the stream that I went into the graduate program. So I did that for 2 years and rotated across all the business units at CSL. And then after that, I did another role in quality, looking at continuous improvement. And in my 4th year at CSL, I actually moved out of quality. So that was an interesting thing that was really unexpected for me. I thought I was going to work in quality forever, basically. Quality is embedded in everything in pharmaceuticals. So, you get to collaborate with a lot of different people. So I thought, great place to be. So I got a role in pharmacovigilance, working in drug safety, and it opened up a whole new world for me that I didn't know of, basically, and really, really interesting, actually. There's a whole science behind monitoring adverse events in pharmacovigilance. So I'm still fascinated about it. So yeah, that's where I am now, basically.
Yeah, that's definitely a fascinating career journey. And even as a student who studies pharmaceutical science, there's still a lot of careers that even we don't hear about. Pharmacovigilance was not something I have ever really thought about, or and now you say that what your job is, it's oh, of course we need that. Yeah, exactly. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I still learn about different functions within the business, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know they existed. But it's it's really big, the career opportunities you can go with in pharmaceuticals, for sure.
And so you mentioned that you joined this CSL graduate program for 2 years, and that sort of helped you to transition from university into industry at that time. So can you tell us a bit more about that? How valuable was the experience was for you at that time and maybe now?
Yeah. So the graduate program, I think was really valuable. And I think without it, my career would look a little bit different, to be honest. First of all, university is a very different place to the workplace. And, I didn't know anything about industry as well. So that was another thing that was different for me as well. And what the grad program really allowed me to do was learn in a really supported environment as well. So, for example, I did 3-4 rotations across my 2-year program. And, I was working in different areas of quality across the business, but I was also working on different projects with different people. So there was a lot of opportunities to learn as much as I could and from everyone in the business. And one of the things that the grad program really pushed us to do was to take opportunities and to learn. Without some of those opportunities, I probably wouldn't have, have the knowledge and have done the projects that I've done now. Another thing about the grad program is, for me, it really accelerated my development. So I don't think anything in the grad program was easy that I did. At times, it was pretty difficult, but I think that's where you learn the most, right? When you're outside of your comfort zone. And so by the time I finished my grad program, I had been working with senior leadership. I had led and been part of global projects with high business impact and critical timelines. And I learned all these skills in a really short amount of time. But yeah, within the 2 years, I felt like I'd been working already for maybe 3-4 years. I had such a great holistic view of the business as well that it just really set me up for success. And I think that's why the graduate program is so valuable as well. I learned so much. I developed really fast, was outside of my comfort zone all the time. And I definitely got opportunities that, I didn't think I would be able to get if I wasn't a graduate, particularly if I had entered the industry in one role, I wouldn't have been able to rotate across all those different areas within 2 years. I think that was really valuable.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool that as such an early career, so early in your career, you were able to be involved in such big projects. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I said, sometimes they were really hard projects, but, there was always that level of support from the business as well as your managers, and they were just so supportive of your development as well. And yeah, it was very big on development, growth opportunities, stepping outside of your comfort zone, things like that.
Yeah, so such a fantastic opportunity. Another thing that tends to help a lot of people moving from academia to industry or just finding jobs in general is to volunteer in different areas. And that's a way to get experience without necessarily having to get those jobs that are really hard to get if you don't have any experience. Is that something that you've done in your pathway a fair bit or at all? And how's that been valuable to your personal and professional development?
Yeah, so I think volunteering is a great thing, to be honest. Whilst I don't probably when I was in uni, I didn't quite volunteer in fields related to, pharmaceuticals. Like I said, I didn't even know pharmaceuticals existed when I was at uni. So, but the types of volunteering I did at uni was, I volunteered at a science museum, showing little kids cool science concepts. Also volunteered for kids with disability camps. And personally, it was so rewarding. You learn skills, you meet people from all walks of life that teach you different things. You learn skills that you don't learn from a textbook or an exam or, in the lab, for example. That's where your emotional intelligence skills get developed. I certainly think personally volunteering shaped a lot of my, my values and my beliefs as well. The way I build my relationships and, meeting people and all of that translates, makes you who you are and translates to your professional life as well, pretty much. The way, my beliefs and, the way I build relationships is so important at work. When I interact with people, when I work, collaborate with people, the way people view me at work as well. So that's all really relevant. In terms of volunteering professionally, I would really recommend it. Currently at the moment, I volunteer for an industry association called Parenteral Drug Association, and they're for, I guess, biopharmaceutical industry areas. And, I'm leading the committee this year, but I was there when it was when it was established, and some of the things you learn from that, again, you don't learn at work. Leading a committee, organising events, getting sponsorships, how to engage and build a community and a club kind of society kind of thing. That's all skills you don't sort of learn at work either. And it's very translatable. I think that's why volunteering is so good. A lot of those things can translate to your professional life. Also makes you stand out as well. Everyone's got a uni degree these days, very academically high achieving, but not everyone has, shows kind of good emotional intelligence skills, or shows that they're good at collaborating. But, that can kind of show through the volunteering you do what kind of a person you are. So yeah, definitely really good to be able to incorporate volunteering, and that'll definitely help you professionally and personally, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seems to give you a bit of an edge and help with all those skills that you can't really get in the normal ways that people go to school and get a lot of their skills. How do you go about finding those volunteering opportunities?
Mostly what I did was sort of look online, talk to people as well. It's a lot about, sometimes connections. Most of the time, I think just be actively looking for those opportunities. There's so many things on Google that you can, search up, any industry associations near you, volunteering aspects at work as well, charities, not-for-profits. They're all really good ways to start to look for volunteering opportunities as well.
So to start with your volunteering, so obviously networking and having connections or good relationships is a very strong starting point for volunteering. So we're just wondering how, are there any ways for you to help you to build up those networking or connections before you do volunteering or while doing volunteerings? Are there any questions that you would ask the other people to sort of to start building up the relationship?
I don't think there is definitely specific questions you can ask. You can definitely ask good questions, but the way I approach my networking is be genuinely interested in what they do, and as a person as well. I think one of my values is being authentic, and I think that's a great thing to be and to have and to do when you're networking. You have so many people in your life, whether it's your workplace or, at uni, and they've all got a wealth of knowledge. And to just simply start a conversation about, who they are, what they do is a great way to start networking. And sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be about, straight away at least, about your field of work or your career or, what volunteering opportunities are, but just to, get to know each other. I think that's the best way to network, start building a relationship where it's, comfortable, and, there's trust. And I think after that, that's where you can then move on to okay, I'd love to have some advice. Are you involved in any volunteering opportunities? In your field of work, is there any really valuable advice? Do you have any connections that you could perhaps introduce me to or share any resources with me? Yeah, so I definitely think, it's being authentic, networking with someone, starting the conversation, and then it will really just naturally progress to questions about anything and everything. And I think that's the best way to do it, because a lot of people think networking is a little bit awkward, it's really hard to go, hi, and then go, well, I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job? kind of thing. And that's just like, well, it makes both parties like, oh, like it's a bit awkward. But, you know, if you approach it in the way where it's really authentic, you're trying to just genuinely know them. And the more you know about them, it actually opens up more conversations and more, well, I didn't know you do this. Like, that's awesome. You know, do you have any volunteering opportunities there? Do you need any extra help there? So getting to know them and being authentic about it is a really great way to start the network.
Yeah, like one thing I struggle with when networking is like having that connection be ongoing rather than just be that one meeting and having that conversation. Yeah. And then often I like add them on LinkedIn and then never talk to them again because I don't know how to keep that going. But like how you said, like making it more comfortable and more authentic definitely seems like it would help that. Do you have any other advice for how to maintain connections?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And to be honest, I think that's something that I'm learning myself too as well, because it is hard to maintain relationships, especially, you know, in that capacity when it's either just purely online and, you know, you may not actually see the person all the time. So obviously when you see the person, you know, it's great to just have a cup of coffee, check in. You know, I have some, you know, some contacts and connections at work, which I don't talk to all the time, but, you know, occasionally I will check in and have a coffee. You know, I think great conversation starters is asking them about how they are and something personal that you can then build on, and checking in on them. That's a great way to maintain the connection and the relationship. And I think that's probably one that I think I'm working on as well. Definitely catching up, you know, connecting here and there. I think meeting face-to-face is a good one. Once you establish the connection, you know, meeting face-to-face here and there is pretty good. Definitely maintain contact when you can. You know, it can be just as easy as engaging with their LinkedIn post or like, you know, checking in on them. Doesn't have to be, I think it's okay to have some time in between. Like, that's not a bad thing. You'd be surprised that most people are actually really, you know, they'll be like, oh, you've popped up again and you're checking in. That's great to hear from you. I mean, it's actually great to hear from you. Like, we don't need to maintain like a weekly or monthly relationship. It's perfectly okay to pick up where you last left off.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
So I guess like having connections and good relationships does help you a lot early in your career. Sure. So we're just wondering if you have any person or like people that you would go to seek for advice, or like you would like advise other students to go to look out for advice earlier in their career? Yeah,
definitely. I think, like I said earlier, you're actually surrounded by so many people that have a wealth of knowledge. And, you know, you could reach out to any of them and they'd be happy to give you advice, honestly. Like, you know, at work, anyone at work, a casual chat, or, you know, a mentor or a manager. You know, obviously, if you're at uni, your lecturer, and, you know, if you're in a lab, your PhD students, or, you know, investigators, scientists, anyone that works in the lab with you, anyone that has more experience than you will be happy to give you advice. You'd find that people are really open to that. And don't forget your peers as well. You know, it's always good to bounce ideas and see what they think as well. You know, even though they might not have more experience than you, they might have a different perspective. But like I said, I mentioned, you know, mentors and managers. So personally for me, my managers in the past have been a really good source of advice. So, you know, I've been really lucky to have managers who are not just, you know, in a professional sense, just a manager, but, you know, personally, they've looked out for my development, and going to them about, you know, actually not even, you know, going to them, but them coming to me and asking me, you know, what do you want to do? What projects are you interested in? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, let's talk about that so that, you know, I know how to manage your development. And so I've been really lucky. So it's definitely important to have good managers. That makes all the difference in your development and career as well. I've also been really lucky to have really good mentors. I don't think mentors need to be like officially, your mentor. It could be anyone that you talk to, on occasion, or, that you see at work and, stop for a chat and talk about anything, talk about career advice, and they're just happy to give it to you. I've had, official mentors as well, and that's been really good as well. Often mentors sort of talk to you and give you advice and about things that you probably haven't faced in your career or in the world yet. And you're like, wow. You're like, okay, I did not know that, influencing at work is a skill that, you need to succeed. I thought people just like you, and we work well on a project together and get things done. So, mentors are so valuable because they, often have more experience than you. They give you a very different perspective. A lot of my mentors are also really inspiring. So, they have great qualities, whether it's their leadership, qualities, or their ability to do their job really well. It really inspires me. So having mentors is super valuable, like not just advice but inspiration, and them often sharing resources and connections with you as well. That's definitely also really valuable.
Yeah, it seems like everyone probably has like a fair few people in their lives that they could establish those relationships with. Like I know myself, like I'm in my honours year, and I have formed like a lot of those kind of relationships with the PhD students in my lab, and like pick their brains all the time about being like, okay, so like how do you decide what you wanted to do and all that.
Yeah, deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life is a scary like decision and question, and honestly I think you only figure that out as you go on. There's like, I didn't know I was going to go into the grad program and do pharmaceuticals, and I'm not sure where my career will lead me next. But, you can have some planning, but most of the time things just happen for a reason, and you just got to go with the flow.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes just having like random conversations with people that are not in our field, it really helps a lot. Because like they can see things that we cannot see. Yeah. And they can ask questions that we never think about. So like it really does help a lot.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point. And I think some people undervalue that. People sometimes look in a specific field for mentors, but often when you look outside that, it's like, wow, like, it's different ways of thinking and different, like, you're just like, wow, you think so differently to the way I do. It's probably because we work in two different worlds, but, it's all very translatable and transferable.
To bring this interview to a close, do you have any advice you'd like to give to young people right at the start of their careers?
Oof, yeah, okay, there's lots of advice. I'd say, it's okay to not, once you finish university, it's okay to not know what you want to do. Be open to opportunities, and you'll eventually land that job that you're looking for, and you'll eventually find that it will lead you to something that you really enjoy. One thing that I really valued and still do a lot is I take opportunities and I actively seek them out. I think to really excel in your career early on, look for those opportunities that make you highly visible, that will challenge you and also make you step outside of your comfort zone. I'm a big believer in that you don't learn much, when you're comfortable and things are easy. And the best part, to learning and to develop fast and, is really step outside of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid. I think it can be a little bit scary and overwhelming when you first, transition from uni to the industry or your career. And, things you do have a real world life impact. It's not just an assignment anymore. It's more than that. But, just believe that you have the relevant support for you to be able to, do your job and be supported, even if you make a mistake. It's not the end of the world. So definitely take those opportunities, find them, go out and seek them. That will really help you stand out, help you develop, and don't be afraid of stepping outside of your comfort zone. I think that's where you learn the most. And, you know, that's where you also have most of the fun sometimes too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that insight. It's been fascinating talking to you, and there's definitely a lot I'll take away, and I hope like all our viewers can get something out of that as well. Thank you so much.
No worries, you're welcome. Yeah, hopefully I gave some good advice. I'm still learning, and I think that's the beauty of it. You know, everyone's still learning. And if you're not learning, there's a problem, I think. So, you know, yeah, I hope it helped.
Dose of Pharma acknowledges the traditional custodians of the various lands throughout Australia on which we connect today, and pays respect to elders past, present, and future.